Hey, well, welcome to the Giving Superpowers to Google Apps for Education with DocentEDU. So I'm going to go over a couple of different things of first just what DocentEDU is, and then how to use it with Google Docs, presentation, forms, drawings, classrooms, a big one, kind of all the different ones that you're using. So if you are using Google Apps right now, you've been really getting into it, this is going to give you a lot of ideas of how you can kind of expand upon what you're doing right now. And things that you've always wanted to do, but you can't, like adding videos. And then if you're also new to Google Apps, it's going to show you a lot of new things of ways that as you're creating your lessons, you can kind of think about how you're going to augment them with DocentEDU. All right, so I'm going to, and also I should mention, so recording of this will be available on our YouTube channel later on. And if you have any questions, use the Q&A feature on the side of this after you've joined the webinar. All right, so let's go ahead and start off. I'm going to show you first how to sign up for DocentEDU if you haven't yet, as well as importing your classroom. All right, so you can now see my screen there. All right. And again, if you got questions, kind of chime in at any time. Okay, all right. So the way that works is with DocentEDU working with Google Apps, if you're a school that's using Chromebooks, you are going to love how DocentEDU works because it's a Chrome extension. And so what you and your students do is you go to docentedu.com and then click on sign up and get the browser extension. You will clearly sign up as a teacher. Your students click on sign up as a student. And then I'm going to sign up with Google. So it uses Google sign in. And then at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on not now for creating a class. So it can be Google sign in. All we're going to ask for is the student's name and the Google ID. And we basically need that so we can like know who is who. So if students respond on your docent, we're able to say if like, hey, it was Billy that wrote this. And then installing the extension. So I already have the extension installed. So it's going to go through and you're going to see the extension up here in the right-hand side. And so what that does is when students sign in, when you or students sign into Chrome, and signing into Chrome is different than signing into Google, it's going to sync up everything for you. So when you first open up a new person, under people, if you add a new person, then it's ask you to sign into Chrome, and that will sync up all of your browsing history and your saved passwords as well as your extensions. So that's a really neat trick of that signing into Chrome, not just signing into Google. It also signs you into all of your Google accounts. If you use Chromebooks, it automatically does that when you sign in. So basically, you install the extension once, and then once you sign into any other Chromebook, it automatically follows you. It's great. It's like a 2-minute delay, like as it syncs up everything. Okay, so what I'm going to go over first is the classroom integration, just kind of because we're already here on the dashboard. Actually, no. We're gonna go through, and I'm just going to give you a preview of what DocentEDU does and how we're going to use it, and then we'll go through and assign it to our classes. So what I'm actually going to do is we're going to first go through the whole process of turning a Google Doc into into a docent. That's kind of more interactive. We can add in some different stuff. And so what you can do is just simply clicking on new and then a Google Doc. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this PDF. So I got this PDF off of readworks.org. It's a free Common Core standards aligned lessons that they have. And I went to reading passages, and you can kind of go by different lexile levels and reading levels. And what I did is after I signed in, I just clicked on download, and I downloaded that PDF and I added it to Google Drive. And I want to use this with DocentEDU. So before I can use this PDF, I'm going to convert this into a Google Doc. So I'm going to right click on that, and then here we go, Google Docs, and through the magic of Google, it will turn it into a nice text of our PDF. Now, sometimes what it does do is that the conversion isn't always as pretty as we want. So I'm going to open up this original one here. You can see a Google Doc open up there. There's a lot of benefits of converting it to a doc from a PDF. So we lost that image, and some of our formatting is a little bit different. So we are going to kind of clean that up a little bit here. Since we lost that image, And so I'm just going to make a few of these changes here. And we can add in that image later as well using DocentEDU. So I'm just going to go through and do these. Now, as I'm doing this, the benefits, as I mentioned before, of switching from a PDF to Google Docs is one, screen readers are going to be working with that. So that means any kind of like text-to-speech things are going to work great. Students can do some highlighting. It's going to work great on mobile devices. If you ever tried viewing a PDF on your phone, you know why that's frustrating. And so we're kind of going through, and we got a few things on here. I'm going to leave this as is right now, and we're going to use this now with DocentEDU. So to do that, so this is kind of think of it as like we've gone from a PDF and we now have our Google Doc, and I'm going to publish this. Publishing is another great thing of what this does. It essentially, it turns it almost into like a web page. And that means you don't have to mess around with share settings or anything like that. So I've gone to publish and I want to publish it. And this link is what I want. I'm going to copy that. And down here, some schools will have settings that require viewers to be signed in with like your school account. Some schools automatically check that by default. Most don't. So don't worry about that. And any changes to your Google Doc, update onto your published one also. So let me show you what this looks like now is, all right, so I've copied this, open up a new tab, paste that in. And here's our Google Doc, right? So this is the same doc as we've got here, but now it's been published. And that basically is just, it now means that we don't have to worry about share settings. There's no, you know, it's now kind of treating it like web page. And so I'm going to load in the DocentEDU extension here. You know, as we kind of like clean up the formatting a little bit so it looks, so that we kind of bring in the margins on the side so it looks more like it does in your doc. And now you can use the extensions over here on the left-hand side. So you can like embed your questions. So if we want to start off with let's see, let's go ahead and add in some instructions actually up here at the top. So like instructions. And then what you want your students to do. I'm trying to remember if this one has questions that go along with it. Let's see, do they have questions down at the end? Yes. So they got a couple of questions that are down here. And so this is where now you can use the DocentEDU tool to ask questions either mixed within here. So if we wanted to, we could ask a question up here of, I think one of the ones, what does the Lotus celebration? So we ask a question here, or we could scroll down to where the questions are embedded down here and then ask that of, okay, Lotus Lantern. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and copy this. Now, if you're familiar with the SAMR model, so substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. This is kind of like a substitution, augmentation steps of where you're making some slight changes to what your lesson was, but this is actually going to be changing a lot of different things about it. One thing that's going to be great is that students can now actually answer the questions right here within the doc. And so the way that this is different than, say, if you were just to make a copy of this Google Doc and share it with all of your students, and so they have their own copy and they're typing in there, the thing that's different about this is going to now take all those responses and collect them into one dashboard where you can then quickly go through and see what the students are responding for specific questions. So if you have 60 students across your classes that are going to do this one lesson, you are not opening up 60 Google Docs and trying to figure out, okay, what were the students thinking as they're going through? You now have just simply one spot, and I'll go over the dashboard later on with that. But you can go through and you can add in multiple questions wherever you want to in here. And now before I talked about that image that we wanted. So the original one that they had was this, was that one right there. And so we're gonna go with something like that. And so I'm actually just going to, we're gonna do a Google search here. And I'm going to paste in one of those images. So we're gonna find an image that's kind of like that. All right, great. We are gonna go with this one. I'm going to do view image, copy that, and heading back over to our published doc. In here, I'm going to add another sticky note, paste that in. And that's it. So now we actually have that in there. You can now embed videos and things like that, which I'll go over next. But so if we're looking at these tools, want to go over like the basics of what these tools do. This is the power of DocentEDU. You're able to do this on Google Docs as well as any other website. So this is your highlight and your annotation tool. So I'm going to highlight Lotus Lantern Festival. So you add that little highlight, and I can also then add in a note if I want to in here. So in Seoul, capital of South Korea, well, so they already say it there, but I'm going to put in So now you can actually add in notes as to any of those highlights that you have. So that's the highlighting tool. And students also have the highlighting tool, and I'll show you how it is that you can have students use that for active reading, and you can view those. The other one is the sticky note. This is when you want to add in a block of text, such as the instructions, where you want to add in other media, things like that. And you can notice that as you kind of move the mouse over the different paragraphs, they change to yellow. That means that you can then add in a sticky note on there. So I think what we're going to do for this is, let's see if on YouTube we can find a video. It's going to work well for this. Let's see here. Lotus Lantern Festival. I'm going to copy that. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one. It's a pretty short one. Okay, we're just gonna search on here. All right, this looks like a pretty neat one, and it's 1 minute 36 seconds. So you can do this with any video that's out there. You can do this with a whole variety of other tools. Check out our webinar on using embeds to remix your lessons. There's a lot of different tools that are out there, and Karen does a great job of going through in that webinar of the different tools that you can use to embed into your lessons, and also how you can use that then to really augment the way that your lessons flow and how your students interact with it. So I'm going to copy the URL, and down here I'm going to put in this one up here. I'm just going to enter. I'm just going to paste in that URL for YouTube, and there it is. So what we're doing here is you're actually embedding a YouTube video that students can watch into your Google Docs. And so, so this is going to be great. I've used it in my science classes where I embed like procedures on how to set up equipment or do experiments. I've done it for recording and like embedding instructions that I've recorded, telling students what I wanted them to do or giving them a demo. But yeah, so you can now embed YouTube videos in Google Docs. I think it's one of the biggest things that people always ask of, like, okay, like how do I put a YouTube video in my Google Doc? And normally you can't, but now you can. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug in here. I forgot to plug my computer in before we start. All right, so we have gone through the highlight, the sticky note, and I've also shown you the questions. So this question tool works in a very similar way. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete that question. And now we've added in a video, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to take away this image here. And I'll delete that one too. So just click on those X's. If you ever want to delete a highlight, you click on the highlight and the little trash can icon. And now I'm going to add in multiple choice questions. What this means is that now you can turn your Google Doc into a complete, into like a auto-graded lesson. And 1 second here. All right, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to put in our question. So if we turn this into a multiple choice question, it's going to be auto-graded. So what is the Lotus Lantern Festival? I'm going to click create. You can change the number of points here. Click create. And then You'd ask a better one for this. For this, I'm going to like, so option 1, put what that's going to be. I hit enter. Option 2, option 3. Then you just click the checkbox next to the one that is correct. And that's it. So now when students go through, these will be randomized of what order they're in. And if the students get it incorrect, it'll tell them that, no, that's the incorrect one. Possible points go down by a little bit. And then students have to keep going until they get the correct answer. Now, I'll show you what that looks like in the dashboard in a little bit. But this is going to auto grade. So if you did just multiple choice questions in your Google Doc, you can add them wherever it is that you want to. It's going to go through, and then students will get immediate grade then. And then for you, when you're going back and looking at the assessment, you can kind of see then of like what it is that students got and where they were kind of struggling, and use that to kind of figure out what you're going to do for tomorrow's lesson. All right, so the last tool that we've got on here is the discussion tool. And this is something of where with Google Docs, you can have a pseudo discussion using the comments or having students type in there, and that gets really messy pretty quick. And so what you can do is with DocentEDU is embed an actual discussion here. So I'm going to put in the topic of festivals where you live. Okay. Go ahead and click create, and then there it is. So now this is going to update in real time for all the students that are in this class for this docent. And so you can simply type in, so now it's going to update on there, and then you as a teacher, you can always go, if you need to, you can then moderate the discussions by clicking on that little ban button, and you can also bring that back in. What's nice here is that you're, as a teacher, you can still see this, but any response that you kind of ban then disappears for students, but you can still see it and bring it back later if you need to. All right, so those are all the different tools that we've got on there. So you can do these as you're going through, and this gives you a lot of flexibility. And it's, start off simple with your Google Docs of how you want to modify them by embedding some of the questions. It's going to make your grading easier. And so the last thing we need to do now is assign this to our class. So I'm going to head back over to our dashboard, and I'm going to go to classes. And what I'm going to do is, so the way DocentEDU works is that everybody has the extension installed, and it goes by a class structure. So I, as the teacher, am going to create a class. And this is where now you can create a class right there. Or if you're using Google Classroom, you can actually then import your student roster and the name of the class from there. So I'm going to do that of import from Google Classroom. I'm going to select my class and click import. And then there it is. So there's our class. That's the name of it. The student roster, I've only got one student in this one, but this is actually this will import all those students. So it'll actually kind of like reduce one of those steps where students don't have to go to docentedu.com to sign up when you import the roster from Classroom, because that's all ready to go. So that's a really great thing. If you did need to have students sign up on their own, what you do is you just give them this code. What I'll do is if I'm using an LMS like Schoology or Edmodo or Canvas, I'll just simply put this code right there. I'll put that into the LMS for the first day and say, like, all right, go to docentedu.com and use this class code when you sign up. You can also put this up on the projector so that students like, oh, all right, go to docentedu.com/sign up and enter that code. Done. All right. And then you can also invite co-teachers here if you need to, and you can import as many classes if you need to going through there. So now going back over to our docent, we're ready to assign this. So to assign this docent, I'm going to click on that and select the class that I want to assign it to. You'll notice, so when I assign that, so I've created this docent, and for my students now to see this docent, I need to assign it to them. So I will select the class. And at this point, students can now, if they go to this page, they can see this docent. But to make it even easier using Google Classroom, what we're going to do is we're just going to click on Share to Google Classroom. We're going to select the class we want to assign it to. We want to create an assignment for this. It's going to give it a title. We can set a due here if we want to, and then it's going to have a link for it, and we're going to click assign. And that's it. So it's that simple to create your docents, import your Google Classroom roster, and then assign out your lesson to your students. It's pretty awesome. So if you're starting from scratch with a Google Doc, you can pop in a couple of questions and send out to your Google Classroom. I mean, in like 5 minutes, you can just get a couple of things in there and you're ready to go. All right, so I'm going to close that. All right, so this is kind of like the basics of you are changing around the way that your lessons with Google Docs work, or using it with Google Classroom. Now, we're going to go over a couple of different things that's different ways that you can embed a variety of things. We've already gone over how to embed a YouTube video, but there's a lot of other good ones that are out there, or there's a lot of other tools you might want to use. And so heading back here, what we're going to do is, let's say if we have a presentation that we want to add in. And so this could be like, even if you had like a hyperdoc or something like that, you can use that with that. All right, so we're gonna have a lesson, and I'm just going to add in an image here. We'll do a search. And we'll add in one more. All right, so, and again, the way that is a really good way to get started is use those existing, any of the existing presentations that you did. So if you're doing like a teacher-centered lesson of where it's kind of like you standing in front and kind of doing like the lecture, however it is that you use presentations, you can now take these presentations and put them into your Google Docs or your Docent, wherever it is that you've made that Docent, whether it's Google Doc or some other website. And so to do that with your Google presentation, we're going to do a similar thing here of clicking on File and then Publish to the Web. We're going to click on Embed, and then here you can kind of change some of the different settings of whether it's going to be a small, a medium, large. We're going to leave it as medium, and then if you want to auto, like I'm just going to do every minute, so it's not real quick. And then there we go. So we're going to do Publish now. Yes, we want to, and it's going to give you this embed code. So I'm just going to copy that code and heading back over to our Docent, I'm going to add in a sticky note, paste in that embed code that Google gave us, and there it is. So we now have a slide that's embedded in there. Students are able to go through. So this is a real easy way to blend or flip your lessons. Ones that were traditionally teacher-led, you can now add those in. And then you can also, what I'd like to do is a lot of times when I do something like this, because this was designed to be kind of like I would design my presentation to be more of like a back and forth kind of thing. I don't want to lose that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some questions here. Like, so from the presentation, and then what my question is, and click create. And so now students are answering that question there. As they're going through and they're doing that, I'm walking around the room and kind of checking with students, and I can even view on the dashboard of what their responses are. So I've been talking a lot about the dashboard, and so I'm going to go ahead and show you what that actually looks like. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. All right. So this is a different account that I've got of where I've got some good responses in my dashboard. So to get to the dashboard real quick, what you can do is open up a new tab and then click the extension. That would jump you right over to the dashboard. And here I'm going to show you guys some responses that I had for this Tween Tribune Docent, and I'll just go ahead and load this up so it kind of shows you what it looks like. And this is where I like this one because I've got a mix of multiple choice and short answer responses that are in here. And so for that, I'm going to click on grades now, and then I'm going to go to my class. So it's my environmental science. That was 8.8 million tons of plastic. And here I can now select which question I want to look at or by student. And so here's the short answer questions. So this is the question right there, and then the student's name and what their response was. And as I'm scrolling through, what's great, this works just as well with on your phone. So I don't have an iPad or a laptop in my classroom, so I would actually just use my phone and then walk around. As I'm walking around the room, I can see the student responses pop in real time. So when Camille gets to this question, she answers it. It's going to show up there automatically, and I can give them a score right here if I want to go through. But I'm going to show you that multiple choice one. Where here now it's showing you what order they guessed the incorrect ones, right? So this is great because Ariana, her thinking was really low, and now it kind of went up. So this is what it looks like on the dashboard. So as students are going through and they're answering those questions on that Google Doc that you added the questions to, you're seeing in real time their responses. And that is something that you just cannot do normally with Google Docs. It's a great way to create lessons. When we're trying to do that assessment, it gets really tricky. And so this just makes that whole process so much easier. So in addition to adding in media, you're now the assessment in real time makes it a lot faster, especially right if you've got like 60 some students. This makes it easier than opening up 60 different Google Docs. All right, so another way to view what students are doing is with annotation. So we talked about active reading strategies with DocentEDU. And so for that, this is another Google Doc that I've got. So you can see here, this is the one that I published. I borrowed this content off of a website because I had some inappropriate other articles on this site. It's kind of one of those like, like top 10 sites. That's why it's 10 rare animals with bizarre adaptations. So I ended up copying and pasting this into a Google Doc. So it was more student safe. And I'm going to load in the extension. And what's cool with the annotations is for this one, I gave the instructions of, hey, instead of answering questions, highlight the adaptation and benefit for each animal. And so this is something that you could do in Google Docs, that have students make a copy and then they, go through and they annotate those things. But the problem there again is you could have like 60 some or more Google Docs that you have to like go through, and that's gonna be really tricky. Once students have annotated a page that you've assigned, so I assigned this published Google Doc to my whole class. Once they've started annotating, you'll now have this new little button up here. So this is like your student button up here. So you can click on that and then go through the different students and actually see what they annotated. So these are Adrian's annotations, Anthony's, Camille. So as we go through, you can see what they have highlighted on here. And so it's pretty fun because now instead of the students having to think about, okay, like, how am I going to answer the question? They're going through, they're interacting with the text as they're going through. That's helping them understand the content better. And it's also giving you a really quick, easy way to be able to figure out what students are getting, what they're missing, and how you want to modify your instruction. And this is, again, updating in real time. So I can, so I can sit down here and let's see, we're going to look at Janelle's annotations. So as she's going through, you can see it's really going to update in real time. So whether you're using your phone or a computer, you can see what they're highlighting. So you can stop over and have that, have that conversation right then with the students, and you can also kind of then refer back to these things later on. What I've done on my computer is I'll have this hooked up to a projector, and so then towards the end of class, I'll actually kind of go through it. I'll previewed these, and I'll know which students I want to select, and then we'll use this as our discussion. So now the whole class can kind of see it like, okay, so now I can use Janelle's as a great example of how she highlighted and kind of interacted with the text to help model that for other students then. So there's a lot of really neat options that you can do. And this will work on any website, but it's a great thing for Google Docs that just makes the whole process so much faster and effective for you as the teacher, as well as for the students. Now, going back to that whole idea of embedding assessments and assessing what they're doing. A lot of people out there are using Google Docs. So I'm going to share my other screen again. Or sorry, not Google Docs, Forms. So I'm going to go back to this one, and I'm going to delete out some of this stuff that we've got in here. And we're going to create a form. And Google's come out with some really neat things for actually making it easier to use forms for assessments. So it's like, right, so you're making these little mini quizzes. And like question 1. So what's nice here is you can go through. So if you wanted like a spreadsheet of response, something like that, you can do that. But if you're already, if you're like one of like the thousands of teachers that are out there that have already created assessments in Google Forms, you can take that form and then embed it in there. So that's just what I'm going to do here is we're just going to have like option 1. And I'm going to add in one more question here. There's going to be like a short answer. Explain why. All right, there we go. Okay, so we've got our assessments, or we've got our form. So this is probably one that you've already done before. So it's got a bunch of different options. I haven't even looked at some of these things like quizzes to make this a quiz, points, values, questions, and allow auto grading. So here we go. So this is one of the things is the auto grading part. So assign point values to questions and allow auto grade immediate after each submission. Students missed questions, correct answers, and point values. I have not even looked at this one. This is exciting. So we can do it as a presentation, general. So we're going to, no, we won't do that. All right, go back to quiz. And all right. So now we're going to click on send. So we've got our form. It's ready to go. We're going to embed this into our Google Doc, really into our docent. And so on the send option, what I want is this embed code. So I'm just going to copy that. I think this one works too. So copy. And then heading back to our docent, I'm going to add in a sticky note, because again, the sticky note is where you want to add in your own content, but also if you just want to embed anything with an embed code. I'm just going to paste that in. And then there it is. I mean, it was that simple. So now you can take those existing Google Form assessments that you already have and put those in, and students can type in their answers. And if you ever require where they have to have like an email or sign in, since they're signed in with Google, that's going to be working out great as well. So that is how to, all right, so we've gone over how to embed a presentation, how to embed a form. One of the other ones we're going to go over is how to embed an image, a Google drawing. We're going to do it in a couple of different fun ways here. So if you've never done a Google drawing before, so for this one, let's say for this one, I want students to draw out a lantern. We'll take that image, we'll put that one into our drawing. So Google Drawing is just a really nice way to very quickly create custom images that you want to put into, just custom images. It's a very simple image editor creator. All right. So if we want to embed just simply this one, if I wanted to maybe do like a collage, so maybe we'll add in a couple more. So I'm going to shrink down some of these images, and we'll add in one more here. So I'm essentially using this to make a little collage. Really check out all the different options they have for Google Drawings. It's pretty great. All right, so I want to embed this little collage that I've created. So I'm going to do publish to web. We're going to do embed and publish. And so I'm just going to copy that link. And I'm going to add in another sticky note just like before. Paste in, there we go. So there is our Google Drawing. So it's going to go ahead and update when you make changes to your Google Drawing. Now, if you want to get really fancy here, this is of where you can do like a collaborative whiteboard across the different students. I've done this in a few times. You want to make sure it's kind of like if you have like something that all of your students can edit. But so what we're going to do is I want to have it so that students can go ahead and modify this image. No, we're going to skip that on this one. But there's a lot of different ways in which you can take Google Drawings and embed them into your docents that students can edit them as well. So we could just simply have a link back to this one. But so this is where you can now take your Google Drawing and then embed that into your docent. And then we could follow this up with questions or discussions if we wanted to. All right, so we've gone over using the classroom, presentation, forms, drawings. And the ones we haven't gone over yet so far is the My Maps and Sheets. So Sheets and My Maps are very similar. I'm going to show you how to embed a Google Sheet so that students can actually modify those. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and add in a Google Map. Now you can do this with, we'll do My Maps. All right, so we're going to do, okay, so we don't, so that one's not going to work. So we're going to just simply go to Google Maps. What I want to do is I want to embed a map of where Seoul is. So I'm going to customize this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. So students get an idea of where it is. Okay, so I think my students have an idea because they'll be able to see North Korea and Japan there. And so now to embed this Google map, and it's very similar whether it's your own custom map that you've saved. So with My Maps, you're able to kind of draw on those maps and do a little bit more customization of things you want to do. But you can do just regular one. So on there, I'm going to click on Share, and then we want to do this embed. And here you can customize it again for how you want it to look. And I'm going to do a small map for this one. And this is how I want it to look. So I'm going to copy that embed code. And heading back over here, I'm going to go up to where they talked about Seoul, South Korea. Delete that question. And I'm just going to paste in that embed code. And there is, so what's neat too is that this is a real Google map. It's not a still image. So students can zoom out and kind of explore to get an idea of where Seoul, South Korea is. The way that I've used My Maps before is then too is that you can then create your own like little path. So if, like from South Korea to the United States, we could even just do like a, like if we were to travel. Yeah, let's do directions. All right, so if we from Minnesota, if we were to travel across here, right? So okay, so there's our flight, so it is pretty far away. But this is gonna be a fun one to embed because then it can give students an idea of how far away where Korea is. So I'm gonna go back to our menu, and then I want to share and embed. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit so they can see the whole thing. So now they can actually see of that, like where Seoul is and then where we are here in Minnesota. So I'm gonna copy that URL with an embed code and heading back to our docent. I'm just gonna click over here, delete that, paste in our new one. And there it is. So students have kind of a good idea of like where Seoul actually is, and say where in the world made me think of Carmen Sandiego. All right. So the last one I'm going to show you how to work with is this is something that I've done a lot with science, is when we use a sheet. So this is going to be great for data collection. So you can embed your spreadsheets in here. And so let's see here. And it's going to go with, yeah. So we're just going to create one from scratch. That's what we're going to do. All right, so we've got our, so this is going to be like, I'm going to switch over to a science type of lesson here. So this is going to be, we're going to do a ball drop experiment. And down here, it's just going to be of time and height. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, so I want that, and then I'll leave that one there. I'm going to pre-populate the time for the students. All right. And to simplify this so it looks exactly the way that I want, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete all of these other columns. And the reason I'm doing this is going to, and I'm going to do down here of an average. Oh no, I don't want to do average. I don't do average. That doesn't make any sense for this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the other table cells here, except for the ones that I've got in there. And so I'm going to delete those rows. All right, so we've got just the things on here, because what I'm going to do is now I'm going to put this into groups. So group one. And what our end goal here is that it's going to be so that students can actually enter data in the doc, and it's all going to get collected in here. So we've got group one. Oops. And I'm just going to change these names then to like group two. Group three. So this is what I want now, because there's two different ways that we could work with something like this. So I'm going to just create a doc, and this is going to be our ball drop experiment. So this is almost like if we're kind of creating this from scratch. All right, so for this one, what we're going to do is there's going to be data collection and then a procedure. So I'm just going to publish to the web. And copy that. All right, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to clean up a lot of my tabs here because I've got quite a few that are open. All right, so now I'm going to load in DocentEDU on here. And for this procedure, I could write out the procedure, but I'm going to go over to YouTube. And I could record a video, but somebody else has probably already done this for me. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and find one that somebody's already done. And so I'm just going to copy that URL, and I'm going to head back over here, and I'm just going to paste that. So now I've got instructions, and then here I'm going to now do our data collection. So there's two different ways that you can do this with your sheet. Now, one of the things is we can do this publish. So if you just want this doc to be view only, then we can do publish. So I could then do the entire document or for specific things of like how I want people to be able to view it. As for the link, so I want the entire doc, I can then do publish and then say okay, and then it's going to give me this iframe embed code. I can head back over here and I can now paste this in. But the problem here is that this is a view only version of it, and that's not quite what I want. This is kind of like a small area there too. So that's not what I want, because I want students to actually edit this data. So if I want them just to view it, then I can do that. And so to do that, we are going to create our own custom iframe. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. The easiest one is if you just go to, if you kind of take like an existing YouTube embed code. So I'm going to go to that one. I'm going to click on share and then embed. And this code right here, so I'm just going to copy this. We're doing a little bit of coding here, so now you can tell your students you know how to code HTML. And I'm going to break down the anatomy of an iframe here. So an iframe just means that it lets you take one page of stuff and put it into another. And what we want here is some of this different stuff where we've got these width and the height. And I'm going to change. So these first things, we've got width and height. This is the width and height of that iframe that you're going to add in. The source basically of where's the stuff coming from. And if you want a border or full screen, we'll leave that stuff. We're going to change those. We're going to change this height to be 600. So it's going to be 600 pixels tall. And we're going to take this one. So I'm going to go back over to group. I'm going to copy that link. And now, because I want students to be able to edit this one, I'm going to change the edit options on here as well. So I'm going to change this so that basically anyone that has access to this is able to edit it. And the reason why I'm not too worried about this here is because it's just my students in my class. It's just my class that's going to know about this thing or be able to view it. So I'm not worried about this at all. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to now, and so we've got that. So I've changed my settings. I'm not going to do anything with that share thing right there, but I'm going to copy that URL and I'm going to head back over here to our code and I'm going to replace this one. So between these commas, so it says source, and between those commas, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to paste in that URL, copy all of that, and then heading back to our doc, I'm going to delete out, well, I'll add in a new one so you can see the comparison. So I'm going to add a new sticky note. I'm going to paste this in. And it's not the prettiest looking thing, but what's really cool is that students can now actually go through and they can enter their data. So I'm going to click up here and I'm going to give the instructions of important. Click on the Your Groups tab and enter your data. All right, so now students can go through and they can click then on the different groups and actually then see those. And you can get pretty fancy then too, where you could then create like a tab that has a summary of all those responses. What's neat is that then as students are going through, they're doing this experiment, they've got all the information that they need right there. So that's kind of the comparison. If this is like a view only one, you can still go through the different groups and see the different tabs, but it's a view only. What we want is this one where they can actually then edit it. And so because I changed those edit settings so that anybody that has access to then can go do that. You could do by individual students if you wanted to. And so they're gonna go through and we kind of like shrunk this thing up so that it works out pretty well. So now students can go through and they can actually now enter in their, so height, yeah, let's say it's gonna be like 100 centimeters and so on as we go through. So now students are going to be making those changes, and then those changes are also going to be updated over here on our doc. So there it is. So you can see those as they're kind of coming through. So that is how two different ways that you can embed then your Google presentations or your Google Sheets into a Google Doc to really kind of remix it. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. So this would be great with math as well. Check out our different webinars for the different ways that you can use DocentEDU with those different things. But so what we've gone over again today to kind of recap it of how it is to create a Google Doc and use DocentEDU with it to embed things like YouTube videos and other media, converting a PDF to a Google Doc so you can use it with DocentEDU along with other great benefits. Then also how to embed a Google Sheet, a Google Slide, Google Forms, drawings, as well as Google Maps into it. If you got any questions, go ahead and send them to us. You can post responses to the YouTube video or comments on there. And let us know if you have any questions when you are using DocentEDU, your running problems. Go ahead and click on the little star tool right there. And that's going to send us a conversation right there. And it's going to let us know of like where you have a question on, if you got any ideas, anything like that. Thanks a lot. And sign up for any of our future webinars.